Let's get this Paul party going, right? Woo! All right, let me go through a few logistics before Ken the Bagpiper plays a tune from Braveheart, which was one of Paul's favorite movies. So bathrooms, obviously you probably know, bathrooms. Hand sanitizer all around. COVID, just in case, just social distance, you're doing a good job. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. If I'm talking too fast, I think you'll be able to hear me, but if I'm talking too fast, just yell at me or something, because when I'm nervous, I talk fast. All right, well, are you watered, Ken? Okay, this is Ken the Bagpiper from Orlando. He's going to open with a tune from Braveheart. Okay, so I forgot to tell you when I was tuning everybody up. Food is complimentary, as is the Irish whiskey toast we're going to have that Kevin's going to do. And bar is cash, which I'm sure you all already know. No? Don't forget to take care of your bartenders. And I want to say a special thank you to Danny, who put this all together. Might have opened up a new business for him. And to all the Celtic Race staff, because I couldn't do this without you all. This probably isn't going to sound right, but I have to tell you, I'm nervous on any number of levels. I wanted to say I'm as nervous as a whore in church, but I don't really have that experience, so I'm not sure that's appropriate. But that was one of Paul's sayings. He loved to say that. And by the way, hello to all the video people who are in, because a lot of Paul's pilot friends are on video, live video. Okay, so I want to share with you some more Paul-isms. Other than I'm nervous as a whore in church, but okay. Paul always thought he didn't have very many friends. There's probably between here and live video, 50 people maybe. He would not have liked this at all, that he knew that something was being done for him, but he would love that it's an Irish whiskey party. He would love that, yeah. He did not get buried in a traditional grave. He got buried at sea. He's about 6 miles. Give me a second. I didn't think it was going to happen so early. Off of St. Pete. He got buried at sea, and I have his coordinates to if I want to go take a boat out or fly an airplane over, I can. I'm thankful he was a trained scuba diver. But he would not like this, except I think right now he's probably up there someplace or down there, I'm not sure, but I'm sure he's laughing his ass off. Okay, so Paulisms, beginning with classic, it's not easy being me. And I'm pretty sure he stole that from one of his pilot friends that he went through flight school with by the name Art Paytek, because Art always used to say, it's not easy being me. Another one, my goddaughter is here, Samantha, wave. Okay, her brother and Samantha grew up on the Illinois River with us boating, and her little brother, I don't know how old he was walking down the dock and decided to turn around and talk to somebody and went right off the end of the dock. So this one is, don't walk down the dock looking backwards. Don't borrow trouble. And you know, if you've heard him say these, just clap or wave or something. This one I hear at least once a day, even if fish wouldn't get caught if it kept its mouth shut. I know, all right, stop it. Don't ask questions you already know the answer to. This is one of my favorites. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. Now this one you just have to just go with it. Paul used to say, simple people, people of the earth, morons. He was a very good patient instructor, flight instructor, and when he was teaching anybody anything, he was really good, but he just didn't have patience for morons. Okay, and then you all know there's got to be a little drinking theme. And I think his favorite was, continuous drinking is the safest kind, you know, because you don't get hangovers. Dave. And he always said too, and this is after an experience in Ireland drinking patties when the bartender, and I can't speak in an Irish accent, but the bartender asked him, what are you ordering that for, lad? Patties is kind of the dregs of the barrel from what I understand, right? Yeah, okay. So he used to say there's no such thing as a bad Irish whiskey, including patties. And by the way, that's going to be the whiskey toast. Just kidding. Actually, we're doing the whiskey toast, and we'll get there, but it's going to be with Fighting Irish 69th Irish whiskey. It was one of our favorites that Brian found. Okay, so this one, you've all heard of Murphy's Law. Well, this was Reeves' Law, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard Reeves' Law, and that's because Murphy didn't show up. And it kind of goes, Reeves' Law, if it can't go wrong, it will. Right? Okay. And to tag on that is because no good deed goes unpunished. But and I have to tell you, this is my favorite. And I can't say it in an accent, but if it's drowning you're after, don't torture yourself in shallow water. When am I having you? Am I doing you before history? I gave you my program. I don't know my own program. Okay, when I'm done, okay, got it. All right, so let me give you a little history on Paul, and I've tried to set up the memorabilia here sort of in chronological order. So you'll see Paul when he was a baby. He was a really cute baby, and I'm sure you all know he had a cleft lip and palate, so those were pictures of him before he had all of his surgeries finished. And you'll notice in his flight school picture, he doesn't have a mustache, and that's the only picture as an adult I know that he didn't have a mustache because he used to try to hide his cleft lip. Okay, so he was an only child, and some of the happiest times he had were with his dad. From them flying in the air coupe that his dad owned when he was 5 years old. Kind of got hooked on flying when he was 5 years old. And his dad also took him, and there's an Indy car here as a model. His dad was a photographer for the Associated Press, and so every year for the Indianapolis 500, he used to go photograph, and he'd take Paul with him. So he has this love of fast race cars. And in fact, I still have a lot of that AP photography equipment. Free to a good home. If anybody wants it, let me know, because I couldn't even sell it at the chamber garage sales. So I don't know what to do with it, but anyway. So you'll see a red TR3 model up here. He and his dad found this really dog TR3, and they took it apart and they rebuilt it and put it back together so Paul had wheels when he went to college. I think he could have picked up girls pretty easily in that, but no, he just had this, idea, I'm gonna get through school, I'm gonna get an aviation degree, and I'm gonna go fly commercial airplanes. Didn't quite work that way because he got drafted. And he went to fly helicopters. And he used to tell a story about when he went to check in, when he got drafted, he said, okay, where do I go to fly fixed wing? And the sounded like a drill sergeant to me. He said, son, you're going where the needs of the business are, and you're going to helicopter school. He said, no, but I was promised flight school. Look, it's right here on my orders. Son? So that's where he met Art Paycheck, as a matter of fact. And he ended up in Vietnam, thinking that when he came out, he would go be a commercial pilot. Except that so did every other pilot in Vietnam. So by the time he got out, all the commercial aviation jobs were taken. I'm not sure where, I'm segueing now, in case you don't know. I'm not sure where his love of boating came from, because I don't ever remember him talking about anybody in his family boating. We, back in the 70s, came across an ad in the back of a motorboating and sailing magazine that said, park your boat in your own backyard. It was from one of our guests tonight, Harry Rowe, who goes by Rary Ho, if you can't get the first and last name right. But anyway, so back in the 70s, we saw this ad, we came down here, knew this is where we wanted to end up. At the time, Punta Gorda and Punta Gorda Isles was just getting started. So if you bought a lot, you had to build on it within 12 months because they were trying to get the community going. We had just built our first house in Illinois and didn't have any equity in it. And we were nowhere near close to retiring. And I just had this issue with, I'm not building a house now to let somebody else live in it until I'm able to retire. That just wasn't on my radar that way. So we put that in the back of our heads, always strove for that. And I used to come down here for probably a month over the winters. My multiple sclerosis did much better here in the winter than in the cold, harsh Midwest. Paul used to come down to visit me, and then we go back together. One of those trips, we made contact with Harry Rowe, who was the face behind the ad we'd seen 2 decades earlier, or at least a decade. Sorry, Harry. We ended up buying a lot. We did our plans, we developed our own plans, and we started to build our house in 2003. Took possession in April 2004 over Easter weekend. Guess what happened in August 2004? Charlie, direct hit. But I'll tell you, even when we were building, we had a substantial increase in building costs because that's when they updated all the codes to Miami-Dade hurricane specificity. And boy, did we crab about that. And then Charlie hit, and we're like, oh, that was money really well spent. We had very little damage, which you would expect from a brand new house. And in fact, we were the first pool cage built back after Charlie because our plans were still hanging in the permit bag to be signed off on. So anyway, that was fortuitous. Let me fast forward to boating. I've got 2 lines of pictures here. Like I said, I don't know where Paul's love of boating came, but we had 30 plus years of really pretty fabulous, beautiful boating. Met a lot of tremendous people. One of Paul's happiest days was when he piloted his main ship trawler from the Keys, Isla Morada, and put it on the lift behind our house. And I wished I had it. I have a picture standing down on the bow, shooting up at him. He's piloting with this shit-eating grin on his face, like, because we oversized our lift, knowing that was the boat that we wanted to get, and it turned out that was pretty cool. Yeah. Back to the early years. Paul was in the Civil Air Patrol. I think most of you knew that. And in fact, we have a representative here tonight, Dick Morrell from the Civil Air Patrol. He actually joined when he was 13 years old because that's the youngest you could be and learn how to fly. So he went to Civil Air Patrol, flew, and then went to the University of Illinois where he got his degree in A&P, it's called Airframe and Power Plant. So that's when he got drafted and was never really able to do what he wanted to do. He struggled a lot of years when he came back from Vietnam because jobs were few and far between in the aviation world. And through the grace of God and a lot of people that helped him along through the years, he had some pretty unique flying jobs. He was able to finish his career in one of the top-of-the-line aircraft, a Gulfstream 5, which is what he really wanted to do. And so he was happy when he quit, when the company moved and put him out of work. Anyway, thank you all for helping him get through all of his piloting issues, because you guys made a remarkable impression on him and our lives, and all for the better. Time out. Everybody take a drink. Talk amongst yourselves. I was very proud of him. He struggled for a number of years, but you all kind of made him an exemplary pilot, and I think you're going to hear about that in a little while from Dick Morrell. One of the things that Paul started to do towards the end of his career was apply for a Wright Brothers Award. 50 years of accident-free flying, but he never got it. So he's getting it now, by God. So his friend Dave called me one day and said, I'll start the paperwork for that. And it took like probably 3 months, I think, to get everything together. And he was awarded, is going to be awarded posthumously, a Wright Brothers Flying Award. And I don't think it's very common. I'm so happy that you all came, because you've all had an impact on Paul's life. Talk amongst yourselves. You all came into his life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and you made an incredible impression on us, and I thank you all for helping us and helping him through his path. My message to you is, don't go a day without telling the people you love that you love them, because there might not be a tomorrow. He fought a really good fight with heart disease and Agent Orange that he couldn't live. Don't let your people that you love not know that you love them. would be an appropriate time. Why do I feel like, can you hear me? 2:54. Testing. Dick, why don't you come on up and do a Wright Brothers for Paul? Paul used to be commander of the Civil Air Patrol for a period of time, and Dick followed Paul as commander. He's a retired major from, this will explain a lot, the Marines. Just kidding.
Paul would never hold that against me. I'm here to present a Master Pilot Award. And you would say it's not terribly challenging. I can get some of it. Have to be a U.S. citizen. I qualify. Have to have, you have to have a pilot's certificate, and I got one of those. The tough part is you got to have 50 or more years of civil and military, combined civil and military experience. And you can't have had your airman certificate revoked. And that's challenging to do, particularly when people are shooting at you and they don't want you flying. Paul was born in '48, and I never realized that he was a cadet between 1960 and '66, as Sue had mentioned, till I got his biography, because he and I share the same, pretty much the same number in Civil Air Patrol. I joined in 2010, so I assumed he joined in 2010, but he in fact had been in Civil Air Patrol all the way back into the 1960s. We deal with a lot of cadets out in Charlotte County, where Paul was a member and I'm a member, and it's really challenging to get rank as a cadet unless you really want it. And he became a captain. Usually they progress through the enlisted ranks, but once you hit that second lieutenant, first lieutenant, then it gets hard, really hard to get it. So he proved his leadership all the way back in 1966. He went off to, as Sue mentioned, the Institute of Aviation in Urbana at University of Illinois, and got his student pilot in 1966, started really seriously flying. And the one neat thing I noticed from this is the FAA package. Everything Paul has done, not on the military side, but with the Federal Aviation Administration. One thing interesting is he couldn't get his student pilot certificate without his dad signing off on it. But looking at the picture there of the air coupe, I don't think his dad had too much of a problem with that. One thing about Paul is there's a statement around that said, if you're at a cocktail party or some party, how do you know if somebody in there is a pilot? And the answer is, wait about 3 minutes and they'll tell you. But Paul wasn't like that at all. He got his A&P, as Sue mentioned, and that's a hard thing to get. In between his private certificate, he got his airframe and power plant. And he gave me a lot of schooling out there on our aircraft, and I didn't know it came from all the way back there. Went on to get his commercial in 1967 and became a flight instructor in 1968. I used to ask old timers when they learned to fly, expecting it was back in the 1960s. The smartest answer I ever got was he said, I learned to fly about 20 years after I became a flight instructor. And so Paul started with his flight instructor in '68. In 1969, he became a warrant officer in the U.S. Army, and from '70 to '71, he served with the 1st Aviation Brigade. You see the hat there. I went online and I noticed they're the Golden Hawks, and he received the Bronze Star, Air Medal, and the Valorous Unit Award. That unit in Vietnam had 1,701 killed in action. They had 5,400 wounded in action. They had 100 missing in action, and they had 4 Medal of Honor winners. So when I'd get a little irritated in the cockpit, it's fun flying with the old warrant officers, because when I'm unhappy with the fuel truck or air traffic control not getting me where I want to go, he'd look over and say something like, well, at least they're not shooting at you. And so that was a perspective he had. By 1985, he had over 2,500 hours in the helicopter Hueys that he flew. He got a lot of ratings. Started in 1998. He kind of went from helicopters to fixed-wing aircraft. Was interested in all this time and all the work he'd been since 1974 when he joined the Air National Guard, became a instructor pilot, a stand-eval pilot, an instrument flight examiner, and a test pilot. And doing that in helicopters and not having an accident is a heck of an accomplishment for anybody, particularly if you're doing it with other students who are trying to do you harm. He became a corporate pilot and got certified in the Bombardier Challenger, which means he transitioned from the low, slow helicopters to the jets. And then upgraded to what I consider to be the top of the corporate pile is Gulfstreams, the ones that really fly high, really fly fast. And he, in 1996, retired after 26 years from the Army and the National Guard as a warrant officer 4, the top of the warrant officer rank. And he showed it whenever he worked with us in the Civil Air Patrol. Retired and moved in 2005 to Punta Gorda, but he wasn't done with flying, wasn't done with CAP. So he joined as a senior member about the same time I did in 2010 and was just about everything to us. He was the heart of our squadron. And then when it got too hard to find a commander, he took over that responsibility and just did a super job. And if you know Paul, he didn't want to do that. He didn't want that kind of thing. He was a guy who loved working in the trenches, doing all the heavy lifting, didn't want the accolades, but he and I were in a competition because we had a great public affairs officer who would take my picture every time I promoted a cadet, every time I did anything. But then in the same paper is Paul and Sue, and their pictures in. And they thought we were having a competition who got in the newspaper most with pictures. And then when he took commander, he got it all. So I want to present this beautiful plaque, and this is his record. Doesn't tell nearly enough, but in recognition of his 50 years of exemplary aviation flight experience, distinguished professionalism, and steadfast commitment to aviation safety. He was a real legend.
Do you know it? I don't know what I'm doing. Are you? Got it. Okay. I tried to convince Ken to find music to play the Army, I was going to say fight song, but that's not really right. The theme song, and it's not available for the bagpipes, his type of bagpipes. So I said, just play anything patriotic. So we're doing America the Beautiful. Got it. He's not from here, so I'll settle for close. Okay, this is where anybody that wants to tell some story about Paul or say something about Paul, this is the time to do it. because then I get to go drink. Oh, oh. Welcome, John Wright.
No, you go. You come here. This is a dual act. Susan, it's my goal to at least bring a smile to you and a few people in the room. I'm not sure where the four of us became friends, but I know damn fine the day that you said, there's a house next door to me, move in. And yes, you did. You had the keys, don't lie to me. There has not been, for living memory, a Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, St. Andrew's Day, St. Paul's Day, St. George's Day. There hasn't been a festive day where you haven't been at your family table, the four of us. We've traveled the world together, we've done crazy things together, we've nearly been arrested together. But there is one that,
Don't go there.
oh well, I'm gonna have to. There was one day in Madrid that I want to remember. Because while you were off drunk on a tricycle with lights on with a strange man,
254.
and Jim was off with an illegal immigrant dressed as a gorilla or a gladiator or something, Paul and I were left at a table staring at each other going, what did we do to deserve this? And he looked at me and he said, you are the closest family we've ever had together. We don't know how we got together. We don't know how we became that family, but we are that family. And we're going to miss him at our table. And he looked after Sue like, I can't tell you. When you've traveled with them, you see the other side of Paul where she was treated like a queen and Paul and I were treated like the servants that carried the bags. And noticed I missed a name out there just so that nobody got offended. But I know what it's like to be Paul Reeves around you. He loved you to death, and you know that. But what I'm going to say on his behalf today is if he is up there or down there looking at you today, he'd be very proud of what you've achieved since January. You have proved the strength. He's still with you. I know that. When you come over for that daily drink.
Which I provide my own, by the way.
It's kind of funny in our house because we really were going through this phase of let's get rid of all this alcohol because the dog sitters were getting really annoyed at opening every closet and booze fell out. And then Sue keeps bringing her own and it just keeps filling it up. But the long story is that he would be very proud of you and what you've done. And you're carrying him in your heart. You're doing everything you needed to do and more. And this, you gathered friends here today and those that are watching. And I've got to be careful because I know my sister's watching me.
Hi, Penny and
Hi,
Dan.
Penny and Dan.
They're in the UK.
They all love you. And we know that Paul loved you deeply. And if you look around this room today, we're all carrying that in our hearts for you. So to Paul and for everything he did for Sue.
Anybody else want to make me cry? Uh-oh. This will be good. Now I really do have to leave, don't I?
What can you say about Paul? Well, I could tell you a lot of boating stories, like Sue said, but we won't go there. One of my favorite stories was my mom had Alzheimer's, and she lived in Bermuda, so my brother calls me up and says, we need some help. I said, okay. So me and my wife pack up, we go to Bermuda, and 3 days into it, I get a call on my phone, and I don't usually get calls from the States when I'm in the islands, and Paul and Sue Reeves. So my wife says, well, answer it. I'm like, well, it's Paul. Do I want to? So we answer it, and Paul says, hey, I'm in your house here, and you know we got a storm coming, and we thought, you know, we'll put up some hurricane shutters for you. I said, Paul, most of them are up. Yeah, but the one in your front door's up. I says, Paul, how'd you get in my house? And my next door neighbor, an elderly guy, we all have keys to each other's house. And he was on the beginning of Alzheimer's, and he says, we pulled into the driveway, and he came running over and says, what are you doing here? He says, oh, we're friends of Peter's. He says, oh, let me go get you the key to the house. So he says, that's how I got in your house. I says, okay.
True story.
So he says, where are your nuts and bolts for the hurricane shutter for the front door? I says, oh, don't worry about that, Paul. You don't have to put it up and all that. He says, no, Sue's out in the garage looking for it. But I'm in your house here. And at the end of the conversation, he says, Peter, I got to tell you one thing. I said, what's that, Paul? He says, you got to get better whiskey in this house.
Good collection of rum.
I did. Just got to start drinking the rum.
True story. And then he expected us to come back and take the hurricane shutters down. Anybody else? Dave, come on up. I know you have stories.
So, a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking about, what?
Tell them who you are. I know Paul first.
Well, he didn't tell him that. I'm Dave, and I'm getting to the part about how I know Paul.
Okay.
But, yeah, so I was thinking a few weeks ago about Paul and how I wanted to remember him or think of him. And so I started thinking about when and where I met him. And I couldn't remember all of the details. And this is one of the Paulisms I don't think you mentioned. As Paul was fond of saying, that won't get any better. You've
all heard that, right?
and it's true, but I was able to piece it together by trying to remember places and things that we had done. And so I imagine where we probably met was my early days in the National Guard. We probably actually met at the hangar at Midway, but we probably got to know each other at Vaughn's, Baby Doll Polka Club, some seedy little bar around Midway Airport that I would imagine. And after that, I was fortunate enough to then work with Paul for quite a few years at Morgan Stanley. And I thought about that, and I wish I could hear George talk. Bud Weiler, another mutual friend of ours, and I think he's on the live stream, but I think Paul was pretty instrumental in getting me hired at Morgan Stanley. I think he might have coerced George.
You just paid him.
But yeah, so we spent the next 6 years or so at Morgan Stanley just flying around the world and, you know, doing something that we both loved, and so many different memories, you know, some of them in airplanes and some of them in pubs. So, yeah, there's, you know, and I was trying to practice the continuous drinking thing last night, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't let me. You made
How did
it.
that go for you?
You made me stop. But you know, it then occurred to me after Morgan Stanley and Paul moved down here, Paul and Sue moved down here in 2005, and I continued my relationship with him. It wasn't over after work, and so I would come down here, once, sometimes twice a year. And a lot of times I'd play golf, but I would always come and spend time with Paul and Sue, and that was really the highlight of my trip. And similar to, I feel there's a lot of people here that I've come to know, and actually, I feel like I knew a lot of you before I even met you, Jim and John. I've heard more stories about them than, and maybe only seen or talked to you guys a handful of times, but I feel like I know you from Paul and Sue talking, Steve and Christy, Keith and Sam, just people that, I really feel like I know them. But I came to realize that in my mind, it was Paul and Sue. And that's how I choose to remember it. It will always be Paul and Sue. So Paul may not be here physically, but he lives on in spirit with you.
Oh, goody. You okay to do this?
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the honorary goddaughter, niece. I go through a few titles, I think.
Daughter.
Daughter. I don't have a single memory.
She's my daughter. Can you tell?
Christmases?
I taught her how to speak, too, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. So, since I was a little girl, the beginning of time, as far as I'm concerned, Paul and Sue were part of my life. Christmas Eves, they were always over for Christmas Eve, and Paul would always play with our toys after we went to bed. Every summer was spent on just us two. And even when I left for college, coincidentally enough, I went to St. Petersburg, and thank God they moved to Punta Gorda, so they continue to be part of my life. And I'm
And
so
then she
grateful.
married this guy.
Yeah, I did. I married a guy, this wonderful man, Keith, and introduced him to Sue and Paul like they were my parents. And I don't have anything funny because I'm not a funny person, but I do have a whiskey story.
Do I know it?
It's not a good story. It's just, Paul was like, I don't drink whiskey, right? So he taught me how to drink whiskey.
That's a good story.
And I don't even think I was 21 yet.
That's a better story.
There's a better story.
That would be Paul.
That would be Paul. So I love you very much. I love Paul very much. And thank you for being a part of my life.
Oh, wait, we have another pilot. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I made everybody cry.
This one's a hard one for me. Paul and I didn't spend a lot of time together, but the times we did spend were real treasurable for, I think, both of us. He and I spent the same amount of time or the same time period in Vietnam. And we would get together and we would talk about this crap we went through. We would always talk about the fun stuff and the nutty stuff. And it was always so rewarding for me. Sorry. It's always so rewarding for me to get together with Paul. Walk away, just always felt good about the time we were in that place. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Sue.
No, it's okay, thank you.
I wanted to be happy, it didn't work that way.
I know you all have heard of the Military Heritage Museum. I don't know if you've been there or not, but there's a simulator, a helicopter simulator in the museum, and Paul and Jim helped program that and put it together. This would be a good place, Kevin Doyle, don't you think, for an Irish whiskey toast? And by the way, I don't know how he's going to do this because he doesn't drink whiskey. How did I do? I told you, get Guinness. Wait, I lost mine. Uh-oh.
How are we gonna do this? We're gonna say something on foil. Thanks. You should get something on foil. We can do it. Austin's gonna pour the drinks, and I have nothing to say about Microsoft as I always do. Oh, Brian's good. All right, thanks. You can help. You can do it. We can help. That's the power of the Huh? I know.
We're going to have a short pause here. Talk amongst yourselves.
And then we're going to have a toast, and I haven't got anything prepared, so as usual, I'm going to be making this up as I go along. In the meantime, do you want to hear a joke? Me neither. I would give my right arm to be ambidextrous. I would give my right arm to be ambidextrous. No? Where do bad rainbows go? They go to prism. It's a light sentence. Half of you heard this one, but do you know people in Dubai don't like the Flintstones? It doesn't matter. People in Abu Dhabi do. Oh, that one worked. Right. Not quite. Not quite. I'm going to have to think on my feet here. All right, let's. We're here for Paul, and we miss him terribly. Paul and Sue is who I want to talk about first, because they've been part of the family here since the beginning, I think, as far as I can remember. And Paul and Sue always found things to put on the wall. And as most of you know, Max and I are the co-owners here. And the four things they bought us included, as well as a cladded door knocker, a roll in a row downstairs. And the one that amuses me most is, I smile because you're my son. And I laugh because there's nothing you can do about it. So we're about to raise a toast. And we had lots of conversations, the three of us, at the bar. And we also had, Paul and I just had a few conversations too. And we always make fun of each other, mostly about our age. So I made fun of him one day and I said, so how was it the dogfights in World War I? And he said, without missing a beat, he said, I didn't let those fuckers get me down. All the pilots will recognize that joke. And he floored me. I had no comeback on that. Anyway, we're about to raise a toast to Flight Sergeant Paul, but Wing Commander Susan. Cheers.
Anybody need a break? Oh, that's right, you just had one. Let me introduce John Luden. He's going to do an Irish blessing in Paul's memory.
So hello everyone, my name is John. Sue has asked me to give an Irish blessing, but before I do, for 22 years I spent my life in ministry as a priest, and I noticed, thank you, but I noticed a lot of people on the journey that true ministry is what takes place between somebody who loves another. And obviously Sue and Paul, their journey was a tremendous journey, but when we die, actually life just changed. It doesn't end. So the Irish blessing really encompasses all of that. It says, it's not goodbye, it's until we meet again. So we sing that Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rains fall soft upon your fields, until we meet again, until we meet again. May our God hold you in the palm of his hand.
And now, just to lighten the mood, Dave is going to come back up and read an aviator's poem, and it's about their last flight.
I might have to do another one of those shots. It was rough. I'm not going to sing it. You don't want that. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter's silvered wings. Sunward I have climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things. 100 things you've not dreamed of, wheeled and soared and swung. High in the sunlit silence, hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up the long, delirious, burning blue, I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark or even eagle flew. And while with silent, lifting mind, I've trod the high, untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand, and touched the face of God.